Alright guys, it's your boy Taco Phil here. I want to do this update video regarding my statement of fact comment, or I should say video. So for those who know, I have my Beetle. It's my 72 Beetle. And I talked about how one of the biggest problems I had with the Beetle was dealing with back fees. So I did a whole video talking about how you can get a lot of your fees waived using statement of fact. And I just want to apologize because I haven't really been keeping up with it. And there's been a good number of people commenting on the video and asking questions, and I really just haven't been paying too much attention. I mean, I put the video up some time ago and it just kind of fell wayside for me. So what I wanted to talk about was some of the ways to make the statement of fact work. So first and foremost, the statement of fact is still there. You can always use it. There is no program that gets rid of it. There is no program that stops you from using a statement of fact. A statement of fact is a statement of fact. It's basically I guess you can say an addendum to any sort of processing of paperwork in order to change the way things are filed, plain and simple. So how it helps you is by attaching a statement of fact, you can ask to change the way that paperwork is filed. And because that paperwork is filed in a different way, it can in turn waive fees, specifically back fees. It will not waive registration fees, it will not waive taxes, but it can waive back fees through pertinent information. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are saying, you go and they just don't want to do it for you. They don't, they don't believe your story, whatever. They just making it hard for you. So I've been able to get statement of facts on all my vehicles. I have a 1976 Goldwing that had $700 in back fees. I got that waived and I ended up paying just $140. My Volkswagen, my 71 Beetle had $800 in back fees and I was able to get that waived. I had a 2000 R6 that had $400 in back fees. I was able to get that waived. I've had multiple vehicles that had back fees I was able to get waived, mainly by using a statement of fact. Now, I was able to get a statement of fact to work for me by doing it in one of the three major categories that I've been able to do it. So the first major category that I've been able to do it in was misinformation. So misinformation basically means that you purchased a vehicle and you were told one thing to find out that it was another. Now, the important thing about purchasing a vehicle and claiming that you were misinformed is basically to make it seem that it wasn't your fault, and that if you had that pertinent information, you would not have bought it. Now, when I bought my my Goldwing, I bought it through a lien sale from a repair shop, and they assured me that there were no back fees, and that basically by selling it through the lien sale, that it would clear all of the past fees. And I bought that bike for cheap. I bought that bike not running for $300 and I rebuilt it. Now, when I went to the DMV, they were like $700, and I basically was like, no, I need a statement of fact because, if I knew that, they assured me that these back fees were not applicable, and if I would have known that it had so much back fees, I wouldn't have purchased the vehicle, period. So that was the misinformation I was able to use in order to waive the back fees. The second time I used the back fees, or I should say the second category, is fraud. Now, I've used fraud once. Well, I've kind of used it multiple times, but that's a whole nother thing, and I'll tell you at the end of that one, at the end of the video, how fraud can work in your favor if you're inclined to be that kind of person. So I purchased a 2000 Yamaha R6 motorcycle, and it had a sticker for the current year. person I purchased it from said the tags were good and there were no back fees. To my surprise, took it to the DMV. It had I think $400 or $500 in back fees. Now again, I paid I think $1,500 for this motorcycle, and I told them, hey, if I'd have known it had this many back fees, I wouldn't have bought the bike. And they tried to pawn it off again, saying, hey, you bought the bike, you're responsible for the fees, yada, yada, yada. And I told them, I said, no. It was this bike was purchased thinking that it was current. And they were like, do you have any proof that the bike shown that it was current? And I said, yes. And I took the freaking plate off. It had the sticker on it. They took the plate, they took the sticker, and they issued me a brand new plate. And they waived all the fees. So that's how you can use fraud. Now, another one is, another way that I've been able to get, and this is how I got my Beetle, is through, I guess you could say non-compliance, I guess you could say. Yeah, so when I purchased my Beetle, it had been sitting for, I think, about 8 or 9 years. And that was the last time it was registered. So I went down to the DMV, and they told me again it had $800 in back fees. And so I told him, I said, the previous owner told me that he had it sitting and it should be out of the system. So what they had me do was fill out a statement of fact. And in the statement of fact, I actually had to bring it to the previous owner and have them sign it. And basically what it said was, the previous owner just noted I had taken the car out of service for repairs and didn't have the money and thought that the car was in non-op, to not realize that it wasn't a non-op. The car had been sitting for almost a decade, off the road, needing repair. And I brought that to the DMV with his signature saying that he thought it was non-op and that the car had been sitting for years, and I was buying the vehicle to continue repairs as a project car, and I would be later on registering the car as if it was out of the system. And they honored it, and they waived those fees. Now, I have had times where they wanted to be a pain in the butt about it, where they did not want to grant me my fees, and I had to argue with them. I've had times in which I've had to go to multiple DMVs in order for them to accept it. I've had times in which, they gave me the third degree about everything that was on the paper, about all the information, and they just really were very hesitant about giving it to me, and then in the end gave it to me. And I've had times in which they didn't even look at the statement of fact. They were just like, okay, and they were like, you want to get it waived? And they were like, sure, and they just waived it, and boom, they filed it with the statement of fact, and that was it. I've had plenty of times in which, they had to bring it up to a manager, and the manager had to look at it, and then the manager asked me a bunch of questions. So you really got to fight for it if you want to save that money. Don't be afraid to go to another DMV. Don't be afraid to tell them, hey, if I would have known, I wouldn't have gotten this. I really feel like I'm getting shafted here. And they'll try to help you out. If they're being dicks, just go to another DMV. Come back on another day. Try to talk to another teller. Try to talk to a supervisor. Tell them the situation. The main thing is you want to make it seem like it's not your fault. I said that in the original video. Remember, if you wouldn't have bought, he goes, if you would have known about the back fees, you wouldn't have bought the vehicle. If, or you were given misinformation, or you were defrauded out of that information when you got that vehicle. That's the important thing to have. Now, I have had plenty of opportunities, and I've had friends who have done it, and the easiest way, honestly, is to just go the fraud route. If you don't have any moral qualms with playing the system, then you can easily, and I'm not telling you to do this, I'm just letting you know that it can be done, and it's an easy way to do it. You take a sticker off of another vehicle from previous year, you put it on that plate, you go down to the DMV and you feign ignorance. You say you bought that vehicle and the person told you it was freaking registered to that year, and I tell you what, works every goddamn time. Now, I'm not telling you to do this, and I'm not advocating frauding the system, but I'm just letting you know it's a pretty guaranteed way to get it done. So, I'm sorry for, taking so long for answering the questions, and for those who are asking for a follow-up video as far as using the statement of fact. I hope you guys have good luck. Don't give up. If you feel like you shouldn't be paying those fees, you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. You know, especially if you're buying an older vehicle that's been sitting for a minute and you want to freaking restore it, you shouldn't be paying back fees. You know, that vehicle should be out of the system. That vehicle should not be incurring fees. You know, you should be able to buy it as a project and start fresh and start anew. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave some comments down in the comment section. And I'll try to spend more time checking on you guys and making sure and answering any questions. Now, like I said in my previous video, all these things were I've done the statement of fact in multiple states. I've done it in Indiana, I've done it in California, I've done it in New York, and I've done it in Connecticut. So your state should have a statement of fact and should have a way for you to file a complaint, request to have fees waived. You know, it may not be called a statement of fact, it may be called something else, but you should be able to find it. If you guys have any questions, again, feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to answer it. It's your boy Otaku Phil. I'll talk to you guys later.